Hello everyone. Now we'll be doing the chapter Tiger in the Tunnel by Ruskin Bond. So, many of you might have been on train journeys, right? Especially at night. You just enjoy the journey, and especially when the tunnel comes, you're waiting for the tunnel to come, for the darkness to envelop you. But just imagine, you come right out of the tunnel, and when you come out, there's this huge tiger skin right in front of the train. That would surely become some breaking news for some TV channel. But think about that watchman who was appointed to see the tunnel, to see whether in that darkness that envelops your train there is no animal. This is a story about one such appointed Khalasi. So let us first have a quick look at the summary. Baldio the watchman was responsible for signalling whether or not the tunnel was clear of obstruction at night. At night, it was his duty to see that the lamp was burning and that the overland mail passed through safely. Pembu, the boy, lay in the station. They lived in a small tribal village on the outskirts of the forest, about 3 miles from the station. Their small rice fields did not produce enough to make them more than a bare living, and Baldio considered himself lucky to have got the job of a Khalasi at this small wayside signal stop. The signal light was out. Baldio set to work on haul the lamp down by its chain. If oil had finished, he would have to return to the hut for more. The mail train was due in 5 minutes. Having made sure that the line was clear, he returned to the entrance and sat down to wait for the mail train. Baldio heard an animal sound, listening as he had never listened before, wondered if it was a tiger. He wondered if it was making for the tunnel or the opposite direction, the direction of the hut, in which Tembu would be lying unprotected. So we see that Baldio is a watchman and his family cannot afford to live only by a little farming. They need more money to fill their stomachs. So what he does, he gets the job of a watchman, and he has to see that the tunnel through which the mail train passes, it is completely clear of animals and it is well lit at night. So this is a very daunting task, especially if you see at the night time. In between the jungles there is a tunnel, any animal might attack him, and even then, just for the money, just for existence, just for continuing his living, he goes there every day and makes sure everything is okay for the mail train. And then suddenly, this one time what happens is, he hears a sound and he thinks that it is an animal. But he is very confused if it is moving in the direction of the train, that is towards him, or is it going towards the hut where his little boy Tembu lies asleep. Now this is a moment of decision. He has to choose between his duty and his family. Before a minute had passed, he made out the huge body of the tiger trotting steadily towards him. Baldio and the tiger fought, but although he injured the tiger, Baldio was unfortunately killed. The overland mail was now approaching. The tiger raised its head, then slowly got to its feet. It found itself trapped like Baldio. Fight along the cutting was impossible. It entered the tunnel, running as fast as its wounded leg would carry it. At the next station, the driver slowed down and stopped his train to water the engine. Above the cow catcher lay the major portion of the tiger, cut the half by engine. There was considerable excitement and conjecture at the station. But back at the cutting, there was no sound, except for the sobs of the boy, as he sat beside the body of his father. Tembu and his sister and mother were plunged in grief for 2 whole days. But life had to go on, and a living had to be made, and the responsibility now fell on Tembu. 3 nights later, he was at the cutting, lighting the signal lamp for the overland mail. In the second part, we see that it was a tiger, and soon he discovered that the tiger was moving towards him. But he had an axe that he had wielded for so long, and wielded with many animals, and emerged out as a winner. So he thought that he would be able to fight the tiger as well, and took on the tiger head on. He injured the tiger twice, but in the end the axe got stuck in the tiger's bone, after which, writhing in pain, the tiger was able to attack Baldio and he killed him. This is not a fairy tale ending as a general story might have. This is a different kind of story. a story about the cycle of life and death. So here we see that Baldio dies, but what happens to the tiger next? Even the tiger is trapped between the body of the man in the tunnel and the train which is approaching from the other side, and the train runs over him, and even the tiger is killed. So after that we see that Tembu wakes up and he sees his father. He protects the body from all the hyenas and jackals around him, and he makes sure that there is continuity, and after grief for his father, life moves on. He takes up the responsibility willingly. Next, now let's see the themes for the story. The first theme is the cycle of life and death. As we just discussed, everything that has come into being will die eventually one day. What is important is that before we die, we fulfill our duty as Baldio did. Next is the theme of continuity. In the story, even after Baldio dies, his little son, Tembu, he takes up the responsibility, knowing that he has to face the reality that Baldio is long gone and he won't be coming back, and life must move on because they're still alive and their existence is also important. So the theme of continuity is present here. Next is the theme of courage and duty. You know, at night in the chilled weather, when Baldio steps out of the hut in the cold night, what he should be very afraid to go to the tunnel, to fight with animals, to make sure that the tunnel is clear of everything for the train to pass. But rather he goes courageously and responsibly and makes sure that he fulfills his duty. So that courage and duty is another theme of our story. And another theme is family. Tembu takes up the responsibility because he knows that he is the one who needs to protect and take care of his family now. One more thing that we have to consider here is that when Baldio hears the sound of the tiger, he is very confused if it's moving towards his son or moving towards him. And at that moment, he shows that care and that love for his family. Next, we will be seeing the character sketch for Baldio. So Baldio was deeply caring, as we just recalled that when he thought that the tiger might be moving towards the hut, he was very deeply concerned that it would hurt his boy, and he was ready to face the tiger before that. So he was deeply caring. He was responsible because every night he used to come out in the chilled weather and make sure that the tunnel was clear. He was very courageous and a fighter because he did not give up. Once he attacked the tiger, he again attacked the tiger, and even after the axe got stuck in his bone, he still kept fighting. He died in the end, that is a different thing, but he still kept fighting, which makes him a true fighter. He was heroic. All his acts were heroic. Even when we say that he came out of the hut, that was heroic. The way he stood in the night for the train to pass by, that was heroic. The way he fought off the tiger, that was heroic. Next, he knows how to face hardships. See, his family was very poor. They did not know how to overcome that poverty. And for that, he had taken up this job of the khalasi, right? So he knew that hardships and obstacles, they were a way of life. But he had to face them head on to actually move on with life for continuity of the life, which is a theme of our story. Now we will be seeing a question, an RTC for the chapter. Let us first read the extract, then we will move on to the questions. They lived in a tribal village on the outskirts of the forest, about 3 miles from the station. Their small rice fields did not provide them with more than a bare living, and Baldio considered himself lucky. So this was the extract. Moving to the first question. Why did Baldio consider himself lucky? What was his job and responsibility? So there are 2 parts of the question. You will be answering them separately. For the first part, you will say that you will have to mention his family background here, that his family did not earn enough by farming that they could fill their stomachs every day. So for that, they needed more money, and that's why the job of khalasi, which he had got, was very important to him, and for that he considered himself lucky. Next, what was his job and responsibility? His job was of a watchman for the tunnel, and his responsibility was to keep it clear at night for the mail train to pass through. Next question. Why did Baldio walk so confidently to the tunnel? Okay, so you have to understand that Baldio had been living in that area for a long time. He belonged to a tribal village and he had an axe, and he had wielded that several times before with animals, with various animals, and he had emerged out as a winner. So with that axe in his hand, he felt that he could tackle on every obstacle head on and he could emerge out as a winner. Next question. What alerted Baldio of the presence of the tiger and then to its springing into the cutting? So the sounds that he hears and when he is confused that if that animal, when he does not know what animal it is, when he thinks that animal is moving towards him or towards the hut, that is when he realizes, that is when he is alerted of the presence of the tiger, and then when he slowly walks towards him, that is when he realizes of that he is springing into the cutting and he is walking towards him into the tunnel. Next question. Describe the encounter between the tiger and Baldio. So you will write that elaborately. You will have to mention how Baldio got alerted of the tiger's presence. Then you will have to also mention that he took on the tiger head on because he had his axe, so he felt very confident about it. First he hit the tiger on his shoulder and he cried out in pain. Again he hit the tiger on the other rib, and then again he cried out in pain, but this time the axe got stuck in his bone and he could not get it out, after which he knew that he might lose the fight and die. But he still kept on fighting and eventually was killed by the tiger, as the tiger was in deep pain and he just pounced upon Baldio. So you will have to mention the entire encounter here. Next question. How did the tiger meet its end? You'll begin by the end of the previous answer. You will say that after the tiger had killed Baldio, he was trapped in the tunnel, as from one end the train was fast approaching him and on the other end a body lay and he was in total darkness in the tunnel. So he was killed by the upcoming mail train. So you'll have to mention that clearly. So this was the chapter Tiger in the Tunnel.